Metaverse.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and this video is actually two things. One, it's a reply video to Matt Easton of Scholagladiatoria. Not contradicting, actually, I agree so much with everything he says. It's just to further the discussion, because there's a couple of points, additional thoughts that I have that I wanted to talk about with you. And also, it's kind of a deeper dive discussion on Batman's helmet, because overall, we're talking about open face helmets versus closed face helmets. Medieval preferences, why I would want one or the other, and like I said, I have additional points I wanted to share, and also kind of reframing, contextualizing it, how would this apply to Batman, because it all started with my Batman video. Now, Matt's video isn't actually, or necessarily, a reply to my Batman one. He's got like a salad that's open face and stuff, and people have been commenting on why wouldn't you want a full thing, and also the types of helmets that we use in the modern day. So after we talk about medieval helmets, I then want to talk about Batman's mask, because it's not actually a mask anymore, it actually needs to be protective armor from what we currently see. So these discussions about how we adapt real things into fiction and making it more realistic, more believable, immersive and stuff, is stuff that I love to do, and it turns out it's stuff that a lot of you guys like to do as well. So I want to suggest a really brilliant writing and world-building software that will help you out in that, which just so happens to be the sponsor of this video, and that is CampfireWriting.com. In addition to Campfire Blazer's great features of interactive maps, timelines, your ability to make your own race compendium, internal word processor, character backgrounds, world-building notes, enabling you to keep track and managing your growing story and vibrant world, CampfireWriting.com brings two new brilliant features: Learn and Explore. The Learning feature offers great articles on writing, world building that can also be submitted for approval to be presented on the website itself, creating a one-stop shop for writers, world builders, tabletop role players where you can learn about whatever you need. The next feature is Campfire Explore, where, in Explore, people can create public projects of their behind-the-scenes campfire writing work, enabling you to share your vibrant worlds with, say, your players in your role-playing group, but also having a great look, accessible, world-building presentation of your world for anyone to check out, which can be a phenomenal complement to your writing and world. Indeed, Campfire and I have teamed up to show you just how this can be done with the Chronicles of Everfall Campfire Explore page. You can go check out and learn all about the world of my novel, Chronicles of Everfall, Shadow of the Conqueror, and see just how you can create your own awesome presentations for your fantasy worlds that you can give access to people to check out, with the possibility of being able to monetize your work Patreon style in the future. So Campfire has just gotten even better with CampfireWriting.com. It is a phenomenal product with one of the most flexible payment structures that you can find, where you can pick only the features that you intend to use, and you don't need to pay for things that you never get around to using in the first place. You can choose to do one-off purchases or opt for monthly subscriptions, which can be as affordable as $1 a month. It is absolutely brilliant, a phenomenal tool for any writer, world builder, role player, and anyone developing a world at all for whatever project you're working on. So do go check out CampfireWriting.com. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video, and there is, of course, a link in the description below. So now let's really dive into this consideration of open face versus closed face. Now, what you might notice, the helmets that I have here demonstrating, they're obviously not historically accurate. It's funny, this one is a very common fantasy, helmet design that's on the internet, and I see why it's so, common, because it looks great. I just love the look and design. And so I grab things that I just think look cool, even if I know it's not historically accurate. This one is actually a faux metal helmet. It's fake. It's actually polyurethane made by Wormwick. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Really cool stuff, but it's there to kind of demonstrate closed, open. So the primary reasons why Matt says there are certain preferences to having an open face helm versus a closed face helm are brilliant. Okay, he mentions breathing, he mentions eyesight, and also sound restriction, also speaking, projecting your voice. That's, having a covering here actually restricts the level that you can actually project your voice, communicate with people, and to a lesser extent, eating, but more importantly, drinking. Now, I don't actually think all those things apply to the Batman helmet per se, but absolutely to helmets generally, those are all things to be considered. But also what needs to be considered is the fact that full covering helmets absolutely did exist and existed for a decent amount of time when they had the technology to make them. Because there are two very important factors that, and this is where the further discussion that I want to bring up, that comes into the comparison between open face and closed face, is not only technology, but also cost. I do do feel a lot of people in the past who had open-faced helmets probably would have happily and preferred going to a full, faced helmet if the technology was available at the time and if they had the money to afford it. Now, it's interesting, the technological restriction thing actually applies even in the modern day. Also the money thing with modern day helmets as well. Cost is a major factor in the type of armor that we supply troops in the modern day. And it's not necessarily, granted, the things that Matt raises are definitely important in terms of, the amount you can breathe, the amount you communicate, and all the things, and so convenience and stuff like that. But it's also cost. And when you're supplying a huge army, a full-faced helmet is a far more expensive thing, especially if it was needing to be made out of not only modern materials, but thick enough to protect yourself from the higher caliber rounds that modern-day body armor is needing to be made. This is why also modern-day body armor, a lot of people only go for the front kind of vest plate, because these plates that are actually capable of blocking the higher rounds are excessively heavy and excessively bulky. And the types of modern body armor that gives more full protection is excessive, like too heavy, too bulky, to the point that people don't even opt that. But if the technology was available and if they could make them in an affordable way, I actually think we would be seeing far more coverage in the type of modern armor that we see, including on the types of helmets. Interestingly enough, there are some cases of full covering kind of helmets, but they only protect lower rounds, and when I say protect, it's not guaranteed either, okay? And also they're much thinner. Like if you have a look at how thick a lot of the military helmets are, okay? There are a lot of problems and restrictions if you're trying to make a face covering that thick. One, weight. Cost is a massive issue, but also with that thickness, it's going to restrict it depending on the type of eye openings and stuff. And so overall, at the end of the day, it's more largely impractical to make full covering helmets. But like I said, I feel if we could make them more cost effectively and we had the technology where they didn't need to be so thick, I think we would be seeing far more full face covering helmets than we currently do. So just because there are a lot of modern day open helmets doesn't necessarily justify the fact that Batman's helmet would then be open face, because Batman, there's a couple of key distinctions. One is the technology level. He's operating with vastly more technology and is operating with vastly more wealth and is only trying to armor one person. So these are key points to remember when we're considering if Batman should have a full, armored helmet, then compared to what we see the types of armored helmets in the modern day. So then going back to the medieval period, and really any period that's using helmets, if they were cheap and cost-effective enough, I do feel we would be seeing a lot more full covering helmets, because one of the reasons we see a lot in the past already for people who could afford it, and there was the technology to do it. Like a full case medieval helmet would protect you from a lot of the medieval weapons of the day, whereas in the modern day, and this is a very important key distinction, even a full face covering helmet will not protect you from all the caliber of bullets that you might face. So that right there kind of explains why we see more full face covering helmets in the medieval period. And clearly a lot of people thought that they were advantageous enough or even preferable to open face. Because if those detriments existed, restriction to breathing, your ability to communicate, hear, protect your voice, eat and drink, if they existed to the point where they were so significant, we would see no full face covered helmets. So with the framing of this discussion, looking at kind of Batman's helmet, please do go watch my previous video, because that's only one part, the discussion of the open face thing. We're just kind of going deeper into the discussion here, but in that video I look at his whole armor, the practicality of the horns, his ears, right, capes, spikes, and also the type of armor design he currently has and how effective it would work as armor. We also had a lot of fun making it as well. I'm happy for me to be seen as an idiot sometimes, because I act like an idiot sometimes. We have fun with it. I'm dressed up as Batman in certain parts in it, so you'll have fun with it. I hope you will anyway. First of all, when looking at Batman, I've never had a problem with his cowl when it was actually just supposed to be a mask and not necessarily heavy gear protective armor. A mask that isn't protective, it just needs to cover his face, and just covering the top part of his face is fine. Then he doesn't have any possible issues that could arise with covering his mouth. But the real reason why I think that they kept his mouth open is, in the comics, is to convey expression and emotion and stuff just on the mouth, because you technically still have full facial expression because they can still manipulate the eyes, draw the eyes more open and stuff like that. So, and just where the brow lines are, you don't need actual eyebrows. See, brow lines, you can have the brows raised, lowered and stuff. And then with the mouth, you technically have full expression anyway, which is fun and useful to convey when you have a story that's working in a visual medium. So as a mask, no problem at all. And that's why I think they initially made it that way. And initially, Batman's costume wasn't actually necessarily armor either. And it started to evolve bit by bit as armor. The first part introduction of armor is Batman gets shot in the chest, and it reveals underneath his bat symbol is actually a type of plate covering. And I can't remember if that was only covering underneath the bat symbol, and the bat symbol functioned as a type of target to bad guys that drew their eye and then therefore would aim at that instinctually. Not a real good justified reason. I get that most people aim for center of mass, but to say that they'll always reliably hit the bat symbol is nonsensical, because not everyone is that great at aim. And so you aim for center of mass to account for the fact that you probably don't have great aim, and any drifting that the bullet does going further out still has chances of hitting your target. So definitely not the best idea if the armor is only under the bat symbol, and I don't think that excuse works too well as being the thing to draw someone's attention. But of course his costume evolved to being more and more armor, more bulletproof, to the point where it became mostly bulletproof-ish, more as a backup, and Batman still relied on a lot of stealth. It's only more recently in Batman iterations where the armor is now completely bulletproof to the point where it can take a machine gun offloading right into the chest. And not only does it not damage the armor, Batman's not even flinching back. It's like it's just walking casually forward. That is next level, super advanced armor. We're talking about futuristic technology to be able to pull that off. Now, of course, Batman has always operated on futuristic technology, but his outfit could only take so much. Even in the Justice League with Batflick, he gets hit by some type of energy blast or whatever, right? And he gets kind of injured underneath. The Batsuit only absorbs so much. And when he really wants like super crazy good armor, as we see in Batman vs Superman, he upgrades it to metal to protect everything, and yet he still has the mouth exposed. Now, clearly, as Matt pointed out in his video, great video, really encourage you guys to watch it, there are a lot of cases of armor with the mouth exposed, but there's also a lot of cases of full armor with the mouth covered, which to me indicates a lot of people felt that that was too much of a vulnerability, therefore they wanted to protect it, because clearly if that opening was never taken advantage of, no one would bother protecting that area at all, and we wouldn't see any fully closed helmets. So then the question is, would Batman logically, if we were to actually be fully realistic, okay, and to look at this logically, would Batman consider that opening too much of a vulnerability? And Batman's a smart guy, okay? And to me, there are two clear scenes which just are so clear it makes the answer beyond obvious, to the point where I do really feel it's stupid and it becomes like a massive plot hole that that opening is still there. And it's this one right here where someone is almost point blank. Do you really think they would aim for the forehead? Maybe at first if they not aware it's such great armor. But even then, I'm not sure, because there's that big opening right there and you're so close. And if you get away with it once, you're not going to get away with it every time. So this establishes some really concerning stuff in regards to Batman. He allows himself to get shot without trying to dodge or anything at near point blank. All right. Now, with modern soldiers and stuff like that, I think rarely they would get into a position where, or at least they would try and avoid a situation to the utmost, where they get into a position where it's nearly point blank firing at you. And I think many modern soldiers would concede to the point that that helmet is not going to be protecting them to save their life if people are shooting at them this close. I'm not saying the helmet wouldn't block the bullet fire. I'm saying that obviously the enemy just wouldn't aim for the helmet if they're aware that that helmet is going to be blocking things. Just aim a bit lower. And of course the other scene is the machine gun scene, where Batman is just casually walking forward into the machine gun thing. All right? Anyone who's really thinking about it logically, after the first second or even half second, they realize, oh, nothing's happening if I'm just shooting in their chest, maybe I'll just raise it a little bit to that glaring opening right there. And because Batman is putting himself into these situations, and his outfit is now not just a costume, it is full-blown armor, all right? And he's in those situations where the bullet fire is coming so close. Yes, absolutely. I think Batman, if he was being truly smart, if they'll go following the logic all the way through, that opening would be covered absolutely. Now, I do acknowledge this in the previous video, but I'm not going into such detail there as I am now. But I did mention that open-face helmets existed in the medieval period, and one of the big distinctions was pinpoint precision bullets, which certainly happens when people are so close to you, they can just aim a little bit lower and shoot Batman right in the mouth. Or under the chin, right up into his brain, like, it's not good. I also mentioned that it wasn't an issue when Batman was mostly relying on stealth, and the armor was more of a backup. It would be very rare instances where someone would get such a clear shot to just aim for the mouth. Even in those those things, I still don't like it, but it's easier to justify. Now that he's just using his costume as full-blown armor and just letting himself be shot in the open, not trying to hide, dodge, or anything, just, oh, you're gonna shoot me? Yeah, go ahead, right? And then having that opening there, oh my goodness, yeah, ridiculous. But what about the issues that Matt does raise in terms of breathability, also projecting your voice, getting heard and also hearing and stuff, eating, drinking, all the things that Matt talks about? Well, again, I think a lot of this is solved by the fact that Batman has the finances and technology to solve them. If you can handwave the fact that some type of material exists that can deflect bullet fire to this level and not be damaged, right? He can easily handwave a mouth covering that allows him to breathe easily as much support. In fact, they'll go further, and then they'll also block poisonous gases and other things because he's Batman, right? Technology, he can just do it because he's rich. Projecting his voice? Maybe. Batman doesn't speak too much to the bad guys, but he certainly does. I'm not saying he doesn't. But operating in stealth, shadows and things, and again, technology, he can just have some type of speaker system hooked up that probably projects the audio from a different part on his suit, not at the front. But if, seriously, mics can get so small and just on the inside of the mask, problem solved there. Yeah, and he kind of does that with his ears already because his ears are blocked by his mask helmet now, and you'd assume that should restrict his ability to hear, but obviously we've seen him put like microphones and stuff in the ears, and so he clearly has some type of technology that allows him to hear just as well and probably even a lot better than without the mask. And so therefore, if that technology exists for the ears, you can just duplicate, hand wave, and say the technology exists for the mouth as well. And this is things that we would kind of expect with Batman from his resources and his intelligence. And then the eating and drinking thing, it's not really a big of an issue, but as I mentioned in the other video, you could add a visor, raise, shut, or just be able to remove that piece. So I really don't think there is many reasons or excuses to justify that opening in Batman, especially in the context of what we're considering now, that Batman is just letting himself be shot in the Batman trailers, basically point blank, and that his costume needs to be fully protective armor. So these are the things that I wanted to mention, and it's been a really fun further discussion. Do go check out Matt's video, it helps contextualize, and of course the previous Batman one as well. I love these back and forths. It's one of the things that make the community of the sword brilliant, because it just means we get to understand more about these, great things, both in history, but also how we adapt them into fiction as well. I appreciate you for watching. Thank you for that. I hope to see you in the next video here on Shadowversity. So until that time, farewell.